evening. Well, it's evening for me. It'll be really late for some of you. I can't do the glare with my glasses. So, if you read the description, this is, I believe, episode 11. So I just typed. And I'm doing a solo episode. I've not done a solo episode before. But I was kind of nudged to do it either late last night or this morning early. And I believe it was my boy. Today is the 1 year anniversary of my middle son, my second boy, who had died. It's the 1 year anniversary of his death. So 1 year ago today, his heart stopped when he went in for organ harvesting surgery. So it's the last several days have been up and down. We spent several days. The accident was super early on the 14th, and then the surgery or donation was on the 18th. So we spent that time in neuro-trauma intensive care. It was a lot, and a lot of it's still a blur. And may always be, who knows. I just felt like I should share about my beautiful boy. I really miss that kid, but I have been okay today. I didn't really plan anything. I basically took the day off. I blocked it out in my calendar so nothing would be scheduled. I did pick up. I have a few cash riders that I do, so I take go back and forth to work outside of a rideshare app. So I picked up the one guy this morning and took him to work, and I already talked to him. Yes, depending on how I feel, and because I didn't know what to expect and how I was going to feel today. But I said, depending on how I feel, would you want to go shoot a game of pool with me tonight after work? Because he goes to the same bar that James and I shot pool at several times. And James used to do the tournaments there. But it was the last place that we ever got to do that. I mean, pool, we've shot pool his whole life, and taught all my kids to shoot pool when they were young. And that was one of the things he really loved it. None of the other kids really do it often, but he loved it, and it was just something he really enjoyed. And so every time I would go home to visit Indiana, especially during his 4 years of sobriety, he was going to the bar and shooting pool, and I'm like, James, is that a good idea? And he's like, yeah, Mom, I have no desire to drink alcohol anymore. I just go and have a water or a pop and shoot pool. And he loved it. And so we did that at a couple different places, over the last few years. And then at this local bar, I think I went, he used to beg me to go, but time gets away from you, and you don't think that time is so short. Even after losing my oldest son, it was still it was a priority, but not a priority. First of all, he was drinking by then. And not at first. He was still sober, alcohol sober when he was here for a while. And he And we did go and just drink waters and shoot at the games. And I went with him a couple times on tournament nights. And there's usually one or two tables that don't have tournaments on them, playing on them, and it's free night because they're doing a tournament. So even if he wasn't playing in the tournament, he still would go on those nights. So I went a few times. That was probably one of the only just fun things that we did in that 6 months that he lived with me before he died. Because we just didn't have time to go do a lot of the things that we wanted to do while he was here. We didn't get to go to the river. We didn't get to go to the mountain. He was in such a dark place while he was 6 months I had him, but it was still, it was up and down, and it was a roller coaster of emotions and lessons and learning, that I can't save my kid, and I can't change his outcome, and I can't make his choices, but I'm so deeply grateful for that time that we had, because I learned so much from him, and I got to know him as an adult in a way I had never done before. You don't normally have your adult children living with you, and it makes, and especially in the mental state that he was in at that time, with the grief of losing his brother, and then the grief of losing his marriage and his life. And he would tell me in his lucid moments, when he wasn't angry, that when he was in rehab for a very short period before he came here, he said they taught me that I didn't lose my life and lose my marriage. I gave them. And that cut him very deeply. And it was a lot of grief. He had lost his oldest brother, and then just a few months before that, he had lost his stepsister to cancer, and it was just because I don't have my glasses on. Hopefully it's not as blurry as it looks to me. They do have really weird shadows. Sorry. I'm not used to doing this so late at night. But anyway, he was just in such a dark place. But we still had a good time. There was still joy and laughter, and we had amazing deep conversations. And he was such an oracle. He taught me, and as I looked back, through the grief and looked back on his life, he taught me that kids are mirrors, and they teach us so much. But you have to be aware and be present and look for those lessons. He taught us, all of us, to live life to its fullest. He lived life on the edge, always. He pushed the edges, always. He was, and he pushed everybody's buttons. He was the middle child, and he fulfilled that stereotype well. Yes, he was a peacekeeper, and he was a Libra, so, he wanted balance and he wanted peace. But we used to call him the scientist because it was like he was the quiet kid when he was younger, and he would just sit back and he knew everybody's buttons. So it was like an old friend of mine, he's like a scientist with a bunch of test tubes, he's got a test tube for everybody. And he just keeps adding stuff to see when they explode. And it was so true. He would push and push and push, and he knew how to incite whatever emotion he was looking for from you. And he could annoy the shit out of you and piss you off. And in the next moment, he would be like, I love you, Mom. And he had those puppy dog eyes. And he thought that was enough to change the energy. But because his whole demeanor and energy shifted, it usually did shift the energy. And he wasn't like mean or aggressive. He just liked to push buttons. He just liked to see what reaction he would get. He was just so curious all the time. And he was that way even very young. He was my quiet kid. He carried his little micro machines, pockets full of micro machines everywhere. And he was the kid that would just sit in the corner. No matter where we were, he would find a little corner and pull out his micro machines and he would occupy himself. And he wasn't crazy rowdy and hyper like his younger brother. And I didn't have to worry about him like running around and wandering too much. But he was always super curious. He always was very, very observant. And he was always just that joy that he just had such a love for life. And he wanted everybody to be that way. He wanted everybody to be happy and be secure and feel good. And he would go out of his way to make people that, feel that joy and feel good, do whatever he could. He was super compassionate. He had a heart of gold. But flip side, he would still always push those buttons. And I've told people for years because he had so many people, so many lives that he impacted, and so many people that loved him and adored him. But he was like the Libra scales. It was one extreme or the other. Either you loved him and adored him, or you just could not stand him and never wanted to be around him again. Now, most people saw the good side of him, and most people loved him, and he did not ever know a stranger. He would talk to anybody and just strike up conversations with anybody. And he really, truly believed, these were his new friends. And they felt that. He just loved interacting with people, and he loved to get to know people and to, brighten their day. That was like his biggest mission. And I don't even know that he even realized that he was that way. He just loved to talk to people and get to know people, and he was just inquisitive and curious. And he was goofy and silly and crazy, and we've all been going through pictures and memories the last week and for the last year. But my younger daughter had sent some in our family chat the other day, and his goofiness, he always was making weird faces, like he could flip his eyelids up and fold them in half, and he would terrify his sisters. And he just always made goofy faces and did weird shit, and you couldn't do anything but laugh at him because he was just that silly. But he just really did love life, and he always pushed the edges, and he was constantly telling us, you have to live for the moment, because he really embodied that we only have this moment, and we're not promised anything else. Everything is happening past and future and present. It's all happening right now, and this is the only time we're promised is this moment. And he embodied that. I mean, he did everything 120%. You know, if he was sleeping, he was sleeping. That kid could sleep anywhere. He would sleep on the freaking ground. He would sleep on the rocks. He would anywhere that kid could sleep. And he would just lay down and go to sleep. But everything he did with that same energy of giving it his all and his best. And some of his ideas were crazy and half-cocked, and I called him my hill jack because he wasn't just a hillbilly. He was crazy. Like his first vehicle in high school as a teenager was a Honda motorcycle, and he put wooden blocks on his to replace his pegs for pegs because that's what he had available. And at one point, his headlight didn't work, so he duct taped or strapped or somehow put a flashlight on this motorcycle so that he had a light because his headlight wasn't working. And that was how he did whatever he felt like doing or whatever came, epiphany. He did it with whatever he had and whatever he could find. And he was just like super resourceful, and he was always bringing stuff home. And he could the kid had I don't even know how many cars this kid had as an adult. Like every other week he had another different car, or anytime he'd mess one up, he'd have another one. It was just, and he just had all kinds of stuff. And strays. People had all the strays. He was a cat kid. Always, since he was little, he loved cats. He loved dogs too, but he was a cat kid. We used to tease him all the time that he was going to be the crazy cat lady because he would have loved it. I mean, if he had a whole farm full of cats, he would have been in heaven. And but he would always bring home strays, and then the rest of us would get stuck with the strays because he'd bring home the stray, and if he bounced around like he lived with his sister and his other sister, and he was living with his fiance, and then he was living here. He left strays everywhere. So I inherited the puppy that was 4 months old and died. My youngest daughter has his cat. My oldest daughter had a cat that he gave her that was a stray. Yeah. His wife still probably has at least one cat and one dog that were his also. But he was that way with people too. He would make friends with anybody and he'd want to help them out. And like we'd be out driving doing food delivery or whatever, or even just running errands, and he would you know buy if the place had a 2 for deal, he'd buy like 2 burritos or 2 sandwiches, and then he'd see a homeless person and he'd give him one. And he would carry like extra water bottles or to give to the homeless because it's we live in hell and it was hot. And that's just how he was. He would have given his last resource to help somebody else. He had one of his favorite Bible verses was Matthew. I'm going to say it wrong probably, and I don't have a card right in front of me. 6:25-34, I believe. I will verify that and put it in the comments, but that was one of his favorite passages, and it's about not worrying about where, how your needs will be taken care of. That's not for us to worry about the how. That God will take care of us like He takes care of the birds, and the trees, and the plants. And He had a tattoo on His arm. And that's really how He lived His life. He didn't stress over what He needed and what, we all have, we stress over money, and we stress over we have to work 12-hour days or whatever. And he did work. He had lots of jobs. And the only job that he was really super proud of and committed 100% to was the Air Force. And he loved, that was his proudest thing. It's probably terrible grammar, but that was what he was the most proud of in his life, was being an airman, being a crew chief. He was an aircraft mechanic, and when he got out of the reserves, then he went to school to be a commercial aircraft mechanic. And then he also had a certificate in HVAC, but he never did do, he had a certificate, but he had to do an apprentice for so many hours, and he had never found an opportunity to do that. I was hoping that's what he would do when he came out here, but he was just not in the state to do that. And he did work a little bit here. He did day labor, and he had a couple jobs. In fact, one of my episodes was with one of his managers from Sonic. I just got to talk to her today. I took one of his memorial cards for her, the assistant manager, and was supposed to both of them. But I didn't mind. I didn't want him to have to worry about going to work, and I wanted him to worry about focusing on himself and processing his trauma and his grief and healing. But he was just in such a darkness at that point in his life that he just could not see the light and find his way out of it. Self-medicating with alcohol became the only option. As an addict, that was his choice of drug from very early on. When he stopped, when he was alcohol sober, he liked to say he was sober for almost 4 years, but he was alcohol sober for 4 years. We found out later that there were other things going on, but when you have that disease of addiction, it is such a struggle because it changes the brain chemistry, and you don't get the dopamine hits naturally, and you have to get that feeling somewhere, and if you're not getting it from the alcohol and drugs, then you have to find other ways to do that, and he just wasn't in that capacity to be able to do it. So, yeah, so that's my boy. He's still with me all the time, and obviously the hat was for him. He loved his fedoras, which I've just realized in the last week or so, couple of weeks, I used to wear these all the time. I used to love this style of hat. I wore hats a lot when I was younger. So when my kids were little, that would have been a normal thing. So I didn't even dawn on me until just the last week or so that his love of fedoras was because I used to love them. So this is not one of his. The one I have of his is too big for me, and it just doesn't fit me right. But this is one that he sent me. It was in a thrift store several months ago, and I was looking for something specific. I don't even remember what it was at this point, but it was like I was back by like the housewares, kitchen stuff, and like sports things, and the shelves. They just have big, huge shelves with a bunch of shit thrown on them sometimes. Well, that's what it was, and I was looking for one specific thing, and this hat was in the middle of one of those shelves full of all kinds of other non-related things. It was not, not apparel, not hats, not sporting goods. Um, and it was just right there when I was looking. Okay, so I've kind of been collecting them. He did it again in a different thrift store also, just before I went back to Indiana last month to visit. I walked in, and as soon as I walked in the door, there was a fedora there that was black with like sequins, multicolor sequins. And I was going back for graduation for my youngest daughter. So I was like, oh, cool. And she was going to do a photo shoot for me. So I obviously had to buy that. And then I still have one from this memorial service that is going to Jamaica in November. It will stay in Jamaica because he was so excited. He wanted to go. He loved the idea of going to Jamaica, and he probably, if he had actually gone on a cruise with us, like he intended, I don't think we would ever got him back on the ship. He would have stayed in Jamaica. But the last hat that I have from the fedoras for James is going to Jamaica. For today, I wanted to find little tiny mini fedoras and attach them to balloons with the card that we used on the ones from his memorial service. But I wasn't able to find them in time. So maybe we'll do that for his birthday this year or next June. We'll see. But I would still like to continue to keep that going because it's been really cool to watch the page. It's if you're on Facebook, we have a page, Fedoras for James, Fedoras number 4 with James. And we sent out 29 of these fedoras with a card on them that says, if you find this hat, please take it traveling with you because he loved to travel. And post pictures of where the hats have traveled. He loved the story of the traveling gnome, so when we thought about this, I was like, oh, this is perfect, and he would think it's so cool. So I want to keep that up, and if you have seen his hats or you have one, keep posting because it brings us joy to know that his memory and his hats are still traveling, and it's also got information about mental health and suicide awareness on it. So that's really important. So, anyway, it's late and I just wanted to come share about my boy. And it's been an up and down several days. My wave of grief hit me late Thursday night when I realized that Friday was the 1 year anniversary of before. So when you lose somebody close, then life becomes before and after. The 13th was the last day that I spent with myself. And that's when it hit me. So Friday was a hard day for me. Not all day, but it took It hit me Thursday night late, and then for a few hours Friday. Just the emotions were very much at surface level, and the tears were in brink, and they came, and that's fine. And that was a great release, and my body's been releasing and letting go of the emotions and more remnants of the grief and the trauma, and that's perfect. Because today I've been okay, and I've enjoyed the memories, and I've enjoyed the stories, family and friends, and being able to go. I have not been back to that bar since before he died. I don't remember exactly the last time I was there, but I didn't bring myself to go back there because it's the last place that we can have fun together like that. And I was fine, and it was good, and I enjoyed it. I probably will do it more regularly because I enjoy shooting pool, and that was something that we absolutely adore. So it'll be good. Have a wonderful rest of your night or whatever time of day it is for you. And I don't know when my next episode is scheduled, but if you would like to be a guest on my podcast, I would love that. I am getting ready to start editing. Well, doing not editing the flow because I love the way it flows and that it's just conversation and raw and real, and it's a sacred place for being a guest. But I mean, an intro and an extro and all the things. Um, but I'll be submitting them very soon to the podcast gods. So I'll be working on that over the next couple weeks, and the next workshop will be sometime the first week of July. I just realized that I haven't even thought about that yet. I was a guest on a podcast that aired last week, uh, a week ago Friday. It was on the 6th. And then today, crazy enough, my feature in this Female CEO magazine published this morning. And I don't know if you saw my post on Facebook. She had sent me the email late last night that it was going to drop this morning. So I messaged her back and I said, it's really ironic because it's the 1 year anniversary of this. That sounds dead. And I'm sure he had his hand in that so that I wouldn't be too down or too depressed or too sad, that I would have other things and have joy also and have that capability. And she messaged me back today and she said that is really interesting because we pushed this issue back a week, which very rarely happens. So that was kind of neat. But yeah, if you're on find my Facebook, if you're watching this on LinkedIn or YouTube, um, actually LinkedIn, there is a post, but the link for that article is pinned on my Facebook profile, and there is a couple of different posts on LinkedIn also with the link for that article. And if you have not checked out that magazine, Female CEO, it's awesome. And Trisha Scott does an amazing job. She is a joy to work with, and really made me dig deep. And it was very healing, even deeper for me, but it also made me dig deep about how my stories can impact and how my support for other parents that have lost children or have children that are affected by addiction and mental health issues, how can I support them? How can I create the most impact? And so it sparked a lot of new things, new ideas and new options and opportunities. So thank you, Tricia. But yeah, please go read it and check out the rest of the magazine. The women are amazing, and the articles are just beautiful. So, we'll see you next time. So just keep an eye out for event pages for the next. I know I do have a guest first week of July, but I don't know what date. It was the Dina Court. I think that's how I say her last name. I was a guest on her podcast. We've been happy to, and she's coming to talk on mine, which I'm super excited about because she was amazing. But like I said, if you would like to be a guest, the link to sign up as a guest is in my Facebook bio. If you can't find it, just shoot me a message. That's it. Have a great rest of your Wednesday and the rest of your week. And I will see you soon. I know I have not been live. It's been kind of a roller coaster, and I've been taking care of me, and that's okay. And so you'll be seeing more of my lives, and I'm going to start doing more like video shorts and like pull some excerpts from the podcast and start using them like on TikTok and in Reels and things like that. So keep an eye out for that. I will see you soon.